Hello and welcome to the Emily Rassam Show. Today I am joined by Robyn Hollas, who is an experienced HR professional, and she is also experienced in operation management. And I'm going to read a description she gave me of herself and ask her a question about it before we get started. You described yourself to me as a divorced mom, a marathon and ultra runner, an HR professional, and someone going through a breast cancer journey all in one breath. Which one of these feels more like you right now?
Oh gosh, I think it's always going to be a mom. So my kids are 23 and 19, and they're just, I haven't been an HR person for so long, HR and payroll. It's so funny. I always have told them, said, I'm raising you to be a good person, but also raising you to be a good employee too. And they never understood it until they started working, and they're like, I get it because whenever you work, you get around other people that may have different work ethics than you or different levels of character integrity. And they're both like, I get what you mean now. So, but yeah, I think it's always going to be a mom.
I love that. I feel the same way. I'm like, no, I'm just a mom,
hmm Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
It is. It's like, it's the biggest three-letter word in the best way. Cause it's
Hmm.
just like you get to see these people, your kids are young. And so, and we'll even teary about it now. You get to see them like, one, you're just like, who trusted me with another human? But, as they grow and they develop and they have these amazing personalities. They're so funny, even when they're little. And then they just develop more and more and more into it. And my kids are hysterical and like both have kind of a dry sense of humor, which is very much like me. And, sometimes it's the sarcasm and dry sense of humor. My son can be very literal and he'll say something and I'll just look at him and he's like, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. It was a joke. So, but we have a great time together. So,
That's so wonderful. I needed to hear that today. My kids are really little, so
yeah, it's so funny because when you're in the trenches, we'll say, when they're
right.
in that, like, you're just trying to, like, get snacks, get breakfast, get bath time, you just get through those moments. And
Mhm.
when I had kids your age, I was like, if one more lady tells me, enjoy this time, I'm gonna flip a table. But it's just one of those, like, as they're the age they are now, and my son went on his first work trip, and it was like, "You're going on your first work trip." It's just such a neat
Yeah.
thing, and then, my daughter's 23, and she's deciding, like, she runs the front end of a, high-end salon in Dallas, and it's one of those, like, she's still kinda sorting things out, but, again, I've told both my kids we live in tends to be in a bit of a, type A area.
Hmm.
It's like, it's your own timeline. Like,
Right.
you have your entire life to choose what you wanna do. So if you go down a path and you decide, "Oh, man, maybe this isn't for me," you know what? There's always another path waiting for you.
Right. Do you think that's kind of part of the journey of life, really? Like, I know I've already reinvented myself a ton of times.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think it comes in, like, when you give yourself that permission to say, "I think I need a detour here." I thought this was gonna be this, but this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. And I'm gonna sit in it for a while and see if I like it. But if I don't, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna go do something else. So yeah. And to not be afraid to do it because this is comfortable. And I
Right.
know what this is. So
Right. I completely agree. So I actually was introduced to you by someone named Scott, and he connected us. How did you two cross paths, and what made you say yes to being on the show?
I met Scott a few years ago through Instagram. It's where you meet everybody now these days, it feels like.
Right.
He and I are in the same alter ego, like ambassador type program. It's a running hat company. They're great small business based out of Florida. It's kind of a grassroots type thing. And he had posted something. I'd started following because it's like everybody's like, I I get in that sort of thing, and you just sort of start following people because you're going to have a common thread being running. And so he had posted something. I was up one morning early. It was a few years ago, and he had posted something. I thought, God, that just like smacked me in the face. in the best way. And I had sent him a message like, "Hey, thanks for posting that, man. That really that was really something." And that's one of the things I found. Like, if something really hits with you, like, tell that person. Like, if you're walking down the street, and you're like, "I love your outfit. God, that looks great on you." Tell the lady, tell the guy, whoever, because then you see their face change, and they're like, "Cute." Now you both feel great for the day. And
Right.
I had reached out to him and he's like, "Hey, I'm glad that, hit with you," that sort of thing. We kind of went back and forth on an exchange and then just sort of built a friendship from there. And then now we've run four races together. We've done Disney. I was doing the Dopey Challenge in Disney World, so it's 4 days of running. And then did the Chicago Marathon, the Marine Corps Marathon, and then also Berlin Marathon. So we ran all three of those races together. So
Wow. That
well,
is
in the sense
so
of
neat.
together, we
Right,
started he
right.
always finished so much faster than me. He's a great runner.
Yes, that's how my husband and I are too. I'm like, "See you at the finish."
Yep, 100 like, "See you there," and he's, like, fully, showered and dressed, and I'm just like, "Okay."
That's so funny. Okay, so next I want to talk to you a little bit about your career. You've worked your way from executive assistant to HCM consulting manager. That's not a straight line.
No.
What does that journey look like for you?
Gosh, goodness. I started to me, and most HR professionals don't think this way. So I'm going to give that disclaimers before anybody comes at me. So I started in payroll. Payroll and HR work in tandem. I've always worked in it as similar to one department. I started working payroll when I was 20 years old, now 50. And so it's just been, oh goodness, a whirlwind getting to where I am. But I like deadlines. I like plans. I think that's why running and training plans work so well because there's an expectancy of it. It's like I know with a training plan, I know this week I need to run X amount of miles on what days or whatever. And the same thing with payroll. There's rules, there's a plan to follow. When the pay date is, when whatever may happen. HR is similar in the sense of, there's a lot more gray within that because you're dealing with people. And I was an HR director for 11 years for the last company I worked for in that capacity. And it was just it was 800 people at the time. The company's grown even since then. 800 people, about 70% of those were men, 70 to 80% were men. And then about 60% of that was 50 and over. And so it was, again, outside the HR typical box. There was a lot of very directed conversation because in the industry, it's very, gosh, you can't soft sell and, "Hey, I'd really like for you to not do that." Like, "Hey, if you could just it had to be like, "Stop doing that. What is wrong with you?" Sort of thing. And there, occasionally it's like, "Why are you, we get somebody saying, 'Why are you being mean to me?' I'm like, 'Why are you making me be mean to you?'" It was, you have to have a sense of humor about it. If not, I mean, sometimes you're dealing with folks on their worst days or, helping them through insurance issues and, helping them navigate various things that, hey, I'm getting divorced. What do I do with my insurance? I'm traveling and my wife's at home with the baby and the baby needs to go to the hospital. What do I do? And so there have been so many phone calls I've taken after hours helping out, like, tell your wife to call me. Let's work through this sort of thing. It's one of those that, it's kind of outside the box to do, but it's like, I can't imagine somebody saying, "Oh, I'm clocked out." Like, I've just never been that
Right,
person.
right.
It's just like, you don't do that to somebody. So, yeah. It was always, and then I became like we'll call it the camp counselor. Lots of people would, "Hey, I know this is outside your realm, but like, can you give me some advice on that?" I'm like, "Sure. What do you have?" So it just, you don't, I never want to turn away somebody they just needs a sounding board, So,
Well, I think it's really an overlooked part and very integral part of most businesses to have. So I appreciate what you do.
thank you. Thank you.
I would like to ask you, what is HCM consulting in plain English? How would you explain that to one of my kids?
Okay. It's human capital management is the sorry, my accent came out a whole lot there. Human capital management is what it is the HCM part of it. So
Okay.
it really encompasses everything when you're talking about an employee. I work for a company that sells software. We also do the implementation, the support of it. My role of it as being the manager is from the time a salesperson brings in a prospect, I then do move into like a sales engineer role and we go through a discovery process to understand how their business works, what they need to see, because you go from the literally the hire to retire side of it. It's the recruiting, it's the onboarding, it's the managing the benefits within the system, it's the payroll, it's the learning management system, it's everything you can possibly encompass within what an employee would touch within the system. And that's what we sell. So we end up matching it and solving their problems that they currently have with their current provider and can show them how our system is very easy to use. And all the years that I've used systems, it is truly such an easy system to use. There, you don't have to like learn any special coding or crystal reports, which I know is such an old school thing to say, but just been doing it a long time. So I go from the sales engineer role into the management role to be able to I run the HCM team and we have everybody in their own specialties. And then when the client says, yes, of course we want your software. I'm like, of course you do. Then they come in and we stick with them through the end. We implement the system, we train them, we do support. We wear many, many hats. We're a small but mighty team. So,
Well, that makes more sense now.
yep.
And I have another question in regard to HR before we move on. What is something broken about the way most companies handle their people that you wish leaders would fix tomorrow, just from an HR perspective?
Get to know your people. Like, really understand. You've got 4 kids. You're not going to parent every single kid the same way because kids are going to respond to everything differently. And, one kid might, respond better to, hey, if you can do this, you get to do this. Great. And another kid, you may just be able, maybe the easy kid that you're like, don't do that. I'm like, okay. If that's possible, under 5. But that was always one of the things that anytime somebody would call in and be like, God, this person, they're late all the time. And, I just, I'm just so frustrated. I'm like, have you asked them why? Like, just, hey, I've noticed, like, are you struggling? Like, what's going on? And then so many conversations have then opened. My mom's sick. Or, you know, I, I'm going to school at night and I'm just so tired in the morning. Or, like, just have a conversation and to get to know that person. Because I guarantee you, 99% of people aren't going to be like, I just don't want to get up in the morning.
Right, right.
There's going to be that extra layer of there's something happening. Just ask. And if you bring that human connection in to be able to say, how can I help? I have seen so many people turn it around to be able like, you want to help me? Like, yeah, I do. And it transforms amazingly. So
I truly believe that as well. And it's, I think, hard when it goes to a larger number of people too. Like making a good connection with them takes real effort,
yes.
especially when you're in a leadership position because, they see you all the time. So they feel like they know you, but you
Mhm.
don't know them.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with I mean, it's not like you don't have to go to dinner with anybody, but it's just one of those just have that interaction, have that connection to where if people really truly believe that you're trying to help them, they're going to try to help you. And it just I have seen that 100 times. One of the gosh, I love this lady so much. She had called me one morning and she was like, "Can I send somebody home for having a bad attitude?" And I was like, "Let me ask you this question." She's like, "Okay." She's like, said, "Is it you or is it your person?" And she goes, "I'll call you back." And in about 2 minutes later, she calls me back and she goes, "Could you put me in for PTO today? It's me." And I'm like, "Sure can. I'll see you
There you
tomorrow."
go.
It's just taking that pause to like, just think about it. Just just like you could let everybody else have a good day too if you go home and have
Right.
a good day.
Right.
So,
That's a good story.
thank you.
Okay, now we're going to talk about running. How
Yeah.
does a person end up running marathon and ultra marathons, and where did that start for you?
Gosh, it started, I think 13, 14 years ago. I was still married at the time. My kids were younger. And I was in HR. I was just, my husband at the time, ex-husband now, he traveled every week and getting kids up to get to school, get to daycare, get to, where everybody needed to be, go to work. And, I'm in this, high pressure jobs and high stress. And our local gym had offered a 5K program, kind of like the couch to 5K.
Right.
I always wanted to be a runner. It was so funny. I tried running through the years, but I just never stuck. And so I just always, in my head, you always think of like, I just want to be a runner. Like, I mean, well, for me anyway. And I just thought, gosh, I just want to get, it feels like a good sense of accomplishment. I'll get in shape, all the things. And so I started running and met some amazing people. And I think it was like a 6-week program, something along those lines. And crossing that finish line, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then that was in spring and then fall. So I had signed up for a half marathon, trained with some of the same people. And it just sort of snowballed from there. And it just was it was something that was my own because when you run, like nobody can do that for you. There's no, you have those when you go train, it's like those opportunities for peace that you just get to like, clear out your head and just like, and the more I would run, the more I would train for races, I just felt like I was becoming a better mom. I was becoming a better person at work. It just felt like, it was more calm. And I tend to be more of a kind of internally anxious person. I try not to let that get out too often. I hear lately is a little more of a challenge, but it just gave me a sense of like, I can breathe. And so that's where it just sort of started and snowballed. And the last few years, I tried Ironman. We both disagreed. It was not for both of us. We separated from there and just that was one of the scariest experiences. And then got into trail running a couple of years ago, and it is just, well, those are my people. I mean, it's such a grassroots type atmosphere. And with road running, you finish a race, and this is very normal of road running, be like, oh, what was your time? And she's like, I'm in the back of the pack runners. I'm like, oh, God, it was forever, And then with trail running, it's like, oh my God, how was the course? Did you have fun? I'm just like,
Right.
yeah, I had fun. I had a great time. I got snacks. I mean, you got like it's such a different the vibe, the atmosphere, the people are so different. And the trail running people, like those are my people. So yeah.
Right, right. I like that too. I totally agree with your analysis on road versus trail running too.
Yeah, and again, no offense to road runners.
No,
Both have such amazing athletes, and it's such a different mindset between the 2 because trail running, I mean, you're out there kicking rocks and tripping over stuff and, you get distracted by animals walking by and they're looking at you like, yeah, I don't know. But it's just it's such a different atmosphere, and it's so almost, like, forgiving, I guess, to a degree, like because it's just sort of you get people from every walk of life ever, and it feels so much more, just welcoming, you could walk up to anybody at a trail race, and they're like, "Hey,"
they're your new best friend. Yes.
Oh my gosh, absolutely, absolutely, and we've got a trail running store here, in Flower Mound that I'm happy to promote, Trailhead Running Supply. It has built such an amazing community. That's how I got into trail running. They do, weekly, runs and hikes, and so Sunday morning, it's called Dirt Church, and so every Sunday morning, you get this collection of amazing people, and you really learn people when you're out on the trails. It's just that again, that human connection of in person of, "Hey, how was your week?" "Oh god, it was a train wreck." "Okay, but hey, did you look at that stream over there?" It's you
Right.
get outside of your, the matrix, if you will, and get to just sort of like get that inner calm. So it's a fantastic community. So
I agree. I love hiking too. So, what does running give you that nothing else does?
I think it brings me back to who I actually am. We get so lost in our different labels. My favorite still being a mom, but we get lost in being a manager, to a degree a mom, to, the chef, the cleaner, all the things that you do at home. It gives me that opportunity to think, to be able to like block out the noise, to be able to just sort of kind of like, okay, and just whether have music on, audible, or just, even when stuff is playing, half the time I don't even listen to it because I'm working through the challenges of the week or the upcoming week, or, God, man, that was really tough today. And just it gives me that time to reflect on things and plan and just work through issues. So it brings me back to me.
What about have you ever been in a place where you genuinely wanted to quit in your race and what happened in that moment?
Absolutely. My first ultra was the Dino Valley 50K, and it was incredibly hard. It's just a really hard course. It's so hard. And you always see people on this course. You're never sort of out in the woods alone. And I did it with my friend Mindy, and it was our first 50K we had done, and it was like 14 hours, I think. But it was like you're just when you're climbing over a tree that's fallen, and I don't mean like a tree, I mean like a massive tree. And then you have to use poles at that. I mean, there were so many times I'm like sliding down rocks, and it was just so hard. It was incredibly hard. And we went through all the seasons in Texas that day. But it was just one of those, you just have to keep going. I mean, my lamp went off. I had to use my cell phone for a light. It's all the things of a first timer that you figure out. And it was so hard, but you just don't quit. And I think that, no, you may turn a direction. I think that's just sort of any life advice. You just don't quit. I don't have the quit in me. You just keep going.
I think that's a really great thing to teach your kids too, and I try to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, you may have to pivot, but you don't give up.
Is there a crossover between what makes a great parent and makes a great endurance runner?
Yeah, you're in it for the long game. There's no shortcuts. When it comes to parenting, it's the greatest job I'll ever do, without a doubt, because these kids are amazing. They're just amazing people, and I'm so privileged to know them and have, witnessed so much of their life. I get a little teary about it, 'cause I just love them so much. You just have to keep going. I mean, there's some days, you wake up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to." There's so many things that, we have to do this, we have to be at this sport, we have to do that, but you're just sort of, constantly in an endurance training with kids because there's no quit there. And you just have to keep going. You have to keep pushing through the hard days. Even the hardest days mean so much more when you're on the other side of it. You just think, "Whew, that was really tough." And, one of the kids and I may be looking at each other like, "That was really rough." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was." When we just get through it on the other side. So, but yeah, there's definitely a correlation. There's early mornings, there's late nights, it's expensive.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about your diagnosis that
Mhm.
you received this year. You can just share whatever you want to. Don't feel obligated to say anything. Where are you right now in going through your cancer diagnosis journey?
I was diagnosed on April 15th, so it was like 45 days after I turned 50. And it was kind of funny because I kept thinking, I'm so excited to turn 50 this year because to me, it's such a privilege because not everybody turns 50. And so I was thinking, oh gosh, I had all these races planned. I was training for 100K. And then you get the news, literally I had went in for a mammogram, and then you're like, we see something we need to look at. I'm like, okay. And then go in for the diagnostic, and then it turns into like 85% of this is not a big deal. Like, well, there's like a whole 15%. And then I had a biopsy, and the phone call from that It was April 15th, and it was about 1:05 in the afternoon, and the lady had said, "Okay, so unfortunately, it didn't come back great, so you have, lobular invasive lobular invasive carcinoma, so here's the surgeon's number, you're gonna wanna call the surgeon." Like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're really sorry about that." I'm like, "What?" And it was like I'm like, "Are you telling me I have cancer?" And it's like, "Yeah, unfortunately." Like, "But you're telling me you're confirming an appointment." Like, "What?" And I was just like in shock. I worked from home, messaged my boss, like, "I need to log off for a little bit." I went, just called the surgeon. I'm on hold, went straight to my best friend's house, and she works from home as well. And she's like, opens the door because it's very unusual for us to be, we both have high stress jobs. And so she was like, takes one look at me and was like, "What's wrong?" And I told her, and it was just like, it was such like are you kidding? And then saw the doctor or later that afternoon. I got a phone call from my caseworker, which I now know I had figured out I had a caseworker. And she's like, "Hey, have you gotten a phone call?" She's like, "Yeah." What? I mean, it was just like, what? And I was like, "What stage am I? I just tell me what stage I am, and then I can process the rest of it from there." And she said, "You're stage one." I'm like, "Okay, now I've got something to work with." And so went from that to went in for surgery. I was a larger chested lady for many, many years. It's genetics. My mother, my grandmother, my aunt have all had reductions. And so it was originally like, "Okay, here's your list of options you can do." And so I chose a lumpectomy and a reduction, which ended up being 5 pounds off my chest, which you don't think about how heavy that is, but that's a lot taking off of your chest. And went back in for the follow up. And she's like, "Unfortunately, we didn't get it all." I'm like, "That's your job, is to get it all." And so now we're here on the next. I'm just like, "Fine." And so next Monday, I'm having a double mastectomy because I don't want to have to worry about this again. I want this gone and done with. And I'll do reconstruction probably next March. I do have to do chemo. That was one of the things that I was just really, really hoping I didn't have to do. But I am considered triple positive. And so, in order to have the best outcome, I saw my medical oncologist last week and she was like, "Okay, this is curable." And I'm like, "Okay." And nobody hasn't told me that the whole time through everything. It's like, "We're going to get you through this." But it's like being in the middle of a remodel and everything looks really bad. It's just really hard to think outside of that. So chemo starts about 4 to 6 weeks from next Monday. So
Thank you for sharing that, and I really like that analogy of the remodel. I think that's a good one.
it is. And I've made so many great connections with some ladies again on Instagram. I've been very open online about it, about what's going on, because to me, it's just one of those things like, we talk about women's health, but we don't really talk about women's health. And so many opportunities along the way. I could have just said, "You know what? I'm not going to worry about this." It took me I had to go get medical records from one location to take them to another to get the biopsy done to really push through getting all this stuff going. And it's not because of lack of anybody else to doing it. It was just like, I want to get this done. I'm a doer on these things. Like, if we have an issue, let's get it done. Let's get it knocked out. Let's be done with it. And there's so often, as moms, we're just like, "Eh, I'll get to it. I'll get to it." And this one, I've been so grateful that it was found so early, and it's not a lump. You don't find this through a lump. It's a very like jelly-like consistency, and it's very hard to find it early stage. And it's one of those things. This could have went really bad. So many opportunities for it to have gone bad. And having connected through with other ladies, a girl I grew up with, her sister was diagnosed last December and found it in one side, and she opted double mastectomy, and it would have been in the other side had she not done it. In 5 to 7 years, she would have been back in to say, "Hey, we found this. Hopefully we found this." And I can't stress it enough to go get screened. And if something doesn't feel right, ask more questions. Like, you're the only one living here, and you got to protect this as much as you possibly can. And if something doesn't seem right, question it. If you don't feel like you're being taken seriously, question it. Go find another doctor. go, you have to bird dog this yourself so much. And, if you don't, things can kind of go bad for you. So it's amazing the support I've gotten from my local friends and family, my trail running community, my online friends. I've made new friends because of this. It's like the worst club ever to be in. Like terrible club to be in, you but it's once you're in it, it's surprising how many other women are like, "Hey, when's your appointment? Let me check in with you. Like, how'd it go?" I've cried on voice notes to a friend down in Houston that the only reason we know each other, she's a triathlete, and we could have crossed paths through that, but she was referred for another friend. Had said, "Hey, you need to meet this lady. She's amazing." She is amazing, no doubt.
Is there something people say to you when they find out about your diagnosis that you wish they wouldn't, and something you wish they would say instead?
Gosh, that I didn't know this until I was diagnosed, but whenever people are like, "How are you?" Like, "Really, how are you doing?" Like, "How do you think I'm doing?" Like, it's one of those, like, cancer, like, it's terrible. It's one of those that it's no, people mean well. I know they do. In my heart, I know they do. And I wish there was a different way to say, "How are you doing?" Instead of, there needs to be I have no idea what it is at this point. And then I can follow this up with another one of, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know." Like, I I don't know what I need right now. It's just don't give me a task to do something. Even though, again, 100% in my heart, I know this person just wants to help. They want to do something for me, but I'm not there are times I have not been in a position to even understand what I want to eat for dinner. And I've had so many friends, and I encourage people to do this. Like, if you really want to do something for someone, just say, "I'm going to drop by dinner on Tuesday night. Is Tuesday good for you?" And let somebody make that decision,
Right,
not a, "Hey, if you need anything," like, I need to not have cancer is what I need.
right,
Obviously that comes across very rude and sarcastic, and that's not the intention ever. But it's one of those things. I've had, friends, "Hey, I'm going to drop off dinner. I'm going to leave it on your front porch. You grab it when you need it. I'll just text you that I dropped it off." Or I had one friend drop me off like 5 books, and she stayed for a little bit, and we visited. And it's one of those things like, if you truly want to do something, which I absolutely believe people, that's the only reason why they say that, then and I've been so guilty of it myself, to be able to say, "Hey, I'm going to do this for you," or I'm going to, whatever it may be, even if it's just a simple text, "Hey, I was thinking about you today." God, that means so much. Text me when you can, or, whatever. But those are such, like, I love those things, to be able to be able to come back in my own time, to be able to say, "Hey, I appreciate you thinking about me," or, "Hey, I was praying for you. Thank you so much. Thank you." Those are, gosh, that means so much versus a, "If you need anything, let me know." Like, what do you do with that? You know?
right, right. I think I have learned that lesson when I had babies too, because people always say that to you as well. They're
Yeah.
like, "I have no idea. Like, I need a nap.
Yeah.
Are you gonna help me with that?" And so I have been very cognizant about that. Like, say, "This is how I am available to help you. Is this gonna be good or
Yeah,
not?"
exactly. Oh my gosh, that goes so, so far. And even with, like, Scott's in Florida, he's gone through a couple of things, and I've asked him, "How can I help?" And for him, it's also that connection of understanding what, he can, whenever I ask him, "How can I help?" And he can respond back in whatever ways, for him that works, but for someone else, it may not work. It goes back to understanding your audience.
Right. I think my last baby, I asked ChatGPT that question. So I printed out a list and I was like, "These are ways that you can help me." I have highlighted the ones that feel especially good.
Mhm. Yep, yep, and sometimes it's just, one of my oldest friends lives in California, and goodness, she's a whole story in herself. It's one of those things that you just, when somebody is there for the good times and the not so good times, that's really when you know who's who's there for you. Because it's when everything's fun and great, that's easy. But somebody that can sit on the phone with you and just let you cry, or sit next to you and not have to talk, but just hold your hand. It's one of my best friend has been with me to every single appointment. And she's going with me to every chemo appointment. And she's told me, she's like, if you tell me to go pound sand, I'll do it. She said, I mean, maybe, but I'm here for you. And, we're both divorced moms, and it's amazing. I couldn't ask for a better support system than what I have. I'm so, so appreciative. And I know not everybody has that. And it breaks my heart for those that don't.
Right, right. I I think people have a hard time, like, themselves communicating when something happens because they feel awkward and they don't know what to say, and
Sure.
I think sometimes the best thing to say is nothing or ask, "Hey, what are you feeling up to talking about right now?" Or nothing at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, you want to go take a walk? If you're local, it's like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Yeah,
Right.
we would love to go for a walk. You know,
Well, I wish you all the best in
thank you.
your journey, and I will be thinking of you all week. I will check in on you next week, so I'll
I
give you
appreciate
some space. I This makes me think of resilience and self-improvement and mindset.
it.
And I mentioned this question to you before, but what have your kids watched you do that you hope stuck with them?
That we'll get through this. That's one of the things that with going through divorce, going through within from 2017, there was a few hard years. We lost my sister-in-law, one of my sister-in-laws, she passed away, went through divorce, lost my stepmom, lost my dad, lost my mom, lost another sister-in-law. So all this has been in the last 6 years. And so, but we've also had some amazing things happen too. My little brother got married, welcomed great nieces and nephews. You just have to take the good with the bad. Not every day is going to be a rainy day. There's going to be a lot of rainy days, but gosh, there's going to be some amazing, beautiful sunny days with it. And that's one of the things that I just want them to know, like, not every day's going to be bad. You're going to have bad days. I'm not going to tell you you're not, but you're going to have some amazing days. And there's so many, no matter where you're at in your life, you always have good days to look forward to. Like, there's always going to be another good day out there. And there's so many things that we haven't done yet that are going to turn into being amazing. It's like as your kids get older, you know, ask them, like the other day, I'd asked my daughter, I was like, when you think of me, like, what do you think of? Like, if you want to it's like having a Yelp review from the kids, so to speak. They're really the only ones that can tell you if you're parenting good or not, because they're the ones
Right.
experiencing the parenting. And I had asked her, I was like, "Well, like, what do you think of me?" And she was like, "Oh gosh, like, I'm always thinking of you being, running or at a race or out and about or doing something, or hanging out, you're always moving, you're always doing something." I'm like, "Okay, that good. That's it. That's what I'm hoping you see, that it's not." My mom suffered from depression, anxiety, several things. It's back when you just don't talk about those things. And I just don't, she wasn't a very active person, and I just don't remember her. She would go to work, come home, go to work, come home. There wasn't a lot of outside things she did. And so, and I really, you know your parents, but you don't know who they are on a personal level. And so that's one of the things that I'm hoping my kids come back from, that is that mom is a real person. She's highly flawed. I'm not ever, never going to say that I'm perfect in any way. And I don't hide mistakes from my kids. I
Right.
was like, "Oh, golly, this thing happened. And man, I was really wrong in that." I never want them to think that, I don't want them to have some view of me that's not flawed, because I think that's kind of in the flaws are kind of where the beauty is.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. My last few things I like to follow up with as we are coming to a close is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received or given, that you would like to share?
I guess a couple of things. When it comes to parenting, you can read all the books ever about parenting. But I assure you, those babies have not read those books and they do not care what those books say. It can be a guideline of expectations and kind of understanding some things, but they really don't care. And, when you're running, just keep running. There's always going to be somebody that's faster, there's going to be somebody that's slower. And, just keep doing it. Run with a smile. And it's amazing when you're in the trenches, when you start smiling to yourself like just an idiot, then it's amazing how it turns around. Your whole mindset will turn around.
That that makes me laugh because my daughter likes to go make angry faces all the time, and he's like, "What does it take to turn things around?" And she goes, "Put a smile on."
Yeah. Yeah. It just brightens everything. It's just sort of like, okay, this
Right.
is this is gonna be a good day.
Yes. Thank goodness for him because she will not put a smile on for me always, even when I ask.
Yeah.
And what is your favorite book to recommend or one that has been instrumental in your life?
Oh gosh. There's so many good books out there. It's so hard. Gosh, one that has stuck with me for about 4 or 5 years now. It's not a personal development book at all. It's One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, and she paints such a beautiful picture of Italy. But it's also the relationship between a mother and daughter, and it's understanding the daughter, seeing her mom as a person and what her mom allowed her to see. And it's one that I came back when I had finished it when I was visiting my friend in California. And it was one of those that it was just like, gosh, we really do only allow people to see what ourselves of what we have that boundary or that mask we put on, that we only allow them to see certain things about ourselves. But the more you can open that up or take it off or whatnot, it becomes just you learn so much about yourself, and they get that opportunity to really see who you are as a person. Because there's so many beautiful things about people, and just letting people in to see that. And it hit home in such a way of like, I didn't really know my mom, and she passed away a few years ago, and we had been estranged for a while. But it was like, gosh, I really wish someone could have really helped her see who she was. And she didn't, I don't think she believed in herself enough. And I'm hoping that that has changed with, breaking the generational things.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that that stopped with her or stopped with me, so my kids can see a different perspective of that, of me, and understand that I'm a whole person, not just mom sort of thing. And
Right.
I think they get that.
I love that. I love that. And one more question. Who, if anyone, can you think of that should come on my podcast that you would recommend? Can you think of anyone?
Oh gosh, yeah, my friend Jessica out in LA, I think she would be excellent. She's been through it. In the sense of it would have been easy for her to give up or quit or do something different. And she keeps pushing through and she keeps pushing through. And she's just an amazing, beautiful person. And it's just once you get over you hear her history and her story, and you're just like, how are you still standing? And she's like, well, you know, what option do I have?
Right.
It's one of the things that at my sister-in-law's memorial service a few years ago, my oldest brother, he has 6 children, and people kept saying, "How do you like, how have you been so strong through, your wife's illness and that sort of thing?" And he was like, "What option do I have? I have 6 children. I don't what can I do? What's my option?" Yeah, and not meaning that in an ugly way, but it's
Right.
truly like, when you hear, "Oh gosh, you're so strong." It's like, "What option do I have?" Like, I have to be. I can cry later about it, but right now, we're pushing through. We're getting on the other side of this. So, and whether that be a race, a hard day at work, a cancer diagnosis, like we're getting to the other side. So,
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story. And I hope whoever is listening to this gets a big pick me up when they hear Robyn's story because it's beautiful and inspirational and a great message, even if you're not a parent, to be a light in other people's lives. So, Robyn, thank you so much for joining me. And I really appreciate it, especially since it's very early in the morning.
I wasn't doing anything else.
Me neither. But yes, thank you so much. And I look
Sure.
forward to hopefully speaking with your friend as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.